most that's all we want without no Forest play. Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
Hello there and welcome to Talking Reds, Nottingham Forest podcast, hosted by myself, Greg Oram, and of course the Oklahoma kid, Richard Spray. With us on today's panel, we welcome from down under, NFFC, Australia's Scott Terry. Alrighty, Old Trafford awaits on Sunday lunchtime and Nottingham Forest go there with Premier League survival secured and the pressure lifted. But nobody goes to Manchester United just to make up the numbers. Not this Forest side, not under Vitor Pereira. So today we will look ahead to a huge test against Man United, the tactical decisions Pereira has to make, and whether Forest can cap off their survival fight with another statement result on one of football's biggest stages. And then there's Morgan Gibbs-White, nominated for the Premier League Player of the Season, and he could return it at exactly the right moment, with Thomas Tuchel's England World Cup squad announcement just a week away. If MGW is involved at Old Trafford, the spotlight will most certainly be on him.
Now Gibbs-White will take this on! Sends it all the way over to Igor Jesus, who knocks it down, the back heels in! Oh, what a goal for Morgan Gibbs-White! So Jesus making movement in the middle to try and get towards the near post. Gibbs-White! Come all the way through. Here's a great chance for Gibbs-White! Wood to aim for in the centre. He's got Gibbs-White at the far post! Jesus up marked at the back post, knocks it down, and there's number 3.
He's the man of the moment, the man of the last few months, and there were the last 7 goals that Morgan has scored, and they've all come in successive games almost. He will, of course, be hoping to be on the plane to the World Cup. If you are with us, welcome along to Talking Reds. We are previewing the Man United game. So in the comments, please let us know that you are here. Red Dog DC says, good afternoon, boys, and the chat. I hope you are well. Good to see you again. David, nice to have you along. Please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, people, if you can. It would be lovely if you'd hit the like button as well. And still waiting for someone anywhere in the world to write a nice recent review for us on either Apple or Spotify. I might have to do a competition or something, Richard, to try and provoke some of these reviews to come our way. We want feedback. Of course, we'd like the nice feedback. But if you've got anything that you'd like to tell us about the pod, then please, by all means, do so. Okay. So let's start with, before we get into the game, Richard and Scott, a couple of things I want to talk about. We'll come to Gibbs-White in just a moment. Neco Williams, I know he's a huge... been a huge player for us this season, Richard, and I think you're wearing. Did I see a Welsh dragon on your t-shirt? Before?
You do see a Welsh dragon on my t-shirt, the Superman logo. Yeah,
at the top of that. Look, he's potentially being offered a new contract. The word come out that Forest want to tie him down. There's been some chat that other clubs are interested. What do you think? Do you think it's now the good time to throw some money at him and get him tied down quickly?
I do. I think when we saw the captaincy came in the most recent match in that first half, we've talked about Greg over and over and over again, along with Raf, who's a huge fan of Neco Williams as well, that he's a cornerstone player. I mean, when you think about what we were when we first came up to the Premier League, there's a couple of players. I mean, Taiwo's certainly a part of that. He was a huge part of helping us stay up. But then you correspondingly, you've got the attacking midfielder and then the defender that were critical as well. And that was Morgan Gibbs-White and then as well as Neco Williams. And it took a little while for him to get some traction, right? Because he was a young player. He had been in the Liverpool academy. I think he'd gone to Roma, if I remember correctly. And so we purchased him from Roma, but he obviously was friends with Johnson. And so they knew about him, knew his quality, knew his talent. And so it took a little while for him to get some traction under Nuno as well as Steve Cooper. But once he did, I think he cemented himself. And now he's become one of the best fullbacks in the league. He's got an unbelievable amount of energy and capacity to to play more advanced positions, get back quickly, defend brilliantly. He can pass. He's good on the ball. I mean, he's got a lot of skill sets that you covet. Plus, he's just such a humble guy, and he's got the leadership qualities you're looking for as well. And we know he's edging towards being probably the most capped player in Wales history. So, and he will be a captain for Wales. I think we said that in the last episode. But the one thing you and I have been consistent about for 2 consecutive off seasons, I think, is that, hey, someone's going to start coming for this guy, because he's done it in a very quiet way, but he's made himself known, I think, to the masses, that he's a brilliant footballer and should be looked at as someone that someone wants to bring in. Liverpool being at the top of our list because we knew how poorly they were operating at right back. So I think this is somewhat prophetic that he's getting traction in terms of interest from other clubs. But we also said, I think offline, the best thing we can do is throw some money at him after he got that captaincy, what we know he means to the club. And I know Marinakis, appreciates him as a player and as an individual, and seeing the same thing. So it's great to see little inklings of that, because to me, that's what you do first. You keep him, you keep Morgan in the shirt, throw some money at these guys to show them that you value them, then let the rest of the offseason unfold, because we will have money to spend. Raf has said that as well. Once we know we offload, obviously, which is not an exciting prospect, but we offload Elliot Anderson, likely Murillo, those kinds of players, and then you utilize that to strengthen your existing core and then build from there.
It's funny because we, in my head, are a huge club, because I grew up with Clough. I grew up with us being challenging for the first division title, winning the European Cup. But then, of course, when you drop out of the top flight for so long, your status as a club and your status within the fan base is almost, clearly if a big boy comes for one of our players, then we've got no chance of keeping them. And I wonder, Scott, if that's still hanging over, even though we're going to go into a 5th year in the Premier League. The talk in the off seasons when it's happened since we've been back is, how are we going to hold on to Murillo, Gibbs-White, and now it's Anderson. Oh God, if so and so comes calling, and actually maybe we're doing ourselves a disservice, because these players are playing week in, week out. They've been a club with a huge history that have achieved, in the time they've been back in the Premier League, 3 semi-finals in cup competitions. Okay, fine. We're still yet to get to that final step to a final and win something. But players like Elliot Anderson have shown that you can be part of a Forest team that gets you into an England squad and so on. So are we maybe a little bit guilty as a fan base of thinking, well, look, if someone comes, they're definitely going to want to go? Or should we give ourselves more credit? And also, Scott, is Neco now in the same bracket as a Morgan, a Murillo and an Anderson, that actually these are core players that we really need to keep hold of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's certainly become a really key and reliable player for us. I think Richard sort of talked around consistency, and I think that's something which has been really, really strong with Neco. I think also as well, you've got to consider his versatility as well. He can play on both sides. Often he sort of rescues us in some games when we maybe got an injury on one side and he has to swap, and they have to bring in a different fullback. So look, I think absolutely he needs to be tied down long term. Great player. I think his attitude as well. Really good attitude. He's prepared to put in the hard yards. Works hard as well for the team. So look, I think key reliable player for Forest. If we can tie him down, then I think absolutely we should be. I think it speaks volumes, doesn't it? If you've got other teams coming for him, that tells you straight away that he's a player of interest. He's a player that's doing well, and he's turning heads in other teams in the Premier League, and maybe even across Europe as well. Just to your point about when a club comes to us and offers us big money for one of our players, I think we're still sort of growing. I think, was it 5 years you're saying that we've been in the Premier League now? So if it's 5 years, these days, unfortunately, even if you get in an owner who has bags of money and he throws that at the club, you still can't sort of make a big jump you still have to sort of, that gradual increment, gradual increments where you're trying to get through into cup competitions, you're trying to get into European footy. And certainly as well, in terms of your placing in the league as well, you still need to be growing there as well. I mean, what is it? I think I saw, for every place that you go up in the league, you get, is it 3 million quid for every sort of extra position you get in the Premier League? So it's a number of things, right? It's getting into cup competitions, into Europe, into building our position gradually in the Premier League. So I think when we keep going up and up and up, and Marinakis definitely has that sort of ambition for this club, which is brilliant for us. I still think, unfortunately, we can still only make increments up to, a really high position. I think it's always going to be the way the financial fair play rules are this season, that we're always going to have to make small increments as opposed to big leaps.
Absolutely. Okay. So we hopefully will be able to tie Neco down to a contract. One player that a year ago looked like he was going to be leaving, of course, is Morgan Gibbs-White. And Mr. Marinakis sprinkled his magic, and we know that he didn't go to Spurs and he stayed, and he got off to a little bit of a slower start, and we criticised him for that. But lo and behold, he has been nominated as one possibility for player of the season in the Premier League, alongside Bruno Fernandes, Erling Haaland, Gabriel from Arsenal, David Raya, Declan Rice, Antoine Semenyo, and Igor Thiago. Gibbs-White, I mean, just briefly, Richard, on this, is he deserved of a nomination? Certainly since January, no one's been better, have they?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you holistic assessment of his stats are better and across the board, other than the assists, right? But for, totality of goal contributing actions or goal contributions, he's definitely exceeded those expectations. And at a desperate time, you take into account the numbers, but it's also when the numbers came, because as we recognized, we weren't converting chances. We didn't have our best conversion, player on the pitch in Chris Wood. He was absent for a significant period of time. You also had issues, with Ola being out, and there was, recently, and then also through AFCON, there was Sangare wasn't here. So the way that he's transitioned into this player that is not just a really good footballer, he's actually taking over matches. He's actually impacting them in a different way than I think he's done in the past. And that's the essential part of it. We kept saying we don't have those impact players, like a Bowen at West Ham, for example, or players who were obviously at this same area of the table, playing on teams that were still helping them try to be successful. And so he really took it upon himself. What the trigger point was for that, he just made a decision, decided he was going to do that. I mean, easier said than done, right? But he has done that, and I think it's not just about the way that he's executed from that perspective. It's the leadership, the maturation there. It's his passing accuracy, less of these sort of like tricks, flicks, as everyone keeps kind of complaining about. It's more judicious in terms of how he executes that stuff. And so as a footballer in general, he's matured in totality. And he has an unbelievable engine too. I mean, he is maximum effort all the time. And so that's the kind of thing that I think would be attractive, should be to Tuchel, because he's got all the skill and the talent in the world, but he's also got that effort, and he's going to set a tone in terms of how players practice, how they train, how they function on that side of it, as well as how they do it on the pitch. So yeah, I mean, incredible, an absolute difference maker for us in this latter stages that have really pushed us over the line and made it possible. Because if he didn't, I think we'd be relegated, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, we always said he had to get his numbers up. We said that had to happen. And so for him to kind of take the ball by the horns, even before the formation shift at halftime against Burnley, he'd scored that goal against Brighton to try and get us back into the game. He'd performed a piece of genius with that back heel at Man City, which for me is goal of the season for Forest, because there's nothing really like that. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. So he stepped up. Now, yesterday on X, TalkSport decided they wanted to ask the Twitter sphere who should start for England in the number 10 role at the World Cup. And they put these three players on screen. They put up a Morgan Rogers of 9 goals and 5 assists. They put up a Jude Bellingham of 4 goals and 4 assists. And then there was Phil Foden, who all of a sudden, because of 2 assists the other night on 7 goals now and 5 assists, is back in part of the conversation. And I just wasn't happy with that at all. So I decided that I had to reply to the tweet from TalkSport with my own version, which quite rightly said, there's Morgan Gibbs-White, 13 goals, 4 assists, Scott. So I'm not so much asking you about should he be on the plane, because I think all Forest fans think he should be. But now that we're going into this Manchester United game and he's been out injured because obviously the horrific face injury, and let's also remember the thing about Morgan Gibbs-White is he's never really injured. In his whole 4 years at Forest, he's hardly missed a game. And it took a horrific collision to rule him out of the Villa semi-final and obviously last Sunday as well. But it looks like he could be back. The man in the mask could be back, Scott. Is this something that Morgan will be pushing for? If he thinks, you know what, I've got one more game before the squad is announced to really kind of give Tuchel a last demonstration of what I can do, do you think Morgan, Scott, will be pushing Vitor to start him?
How good would it be to see both Morgan and Anderson playing for England? You know, two Forest players side by side playing for the England team. Absolutely, Morgan should be pushing Pereira to play him in this game. You know, like, yes, we are safe. Yes, the pressure's off a little bit, but there, you know, I think both for Pereira and Gibbs-White and players that are trying to show to be in good form and want to be selected for their national teams. And Morgan's one of those players, right? He's playing in great form. I kind of sometimes think, you know, almost like he is like the heartbeat of the Forest team when he's in there, and his creativity, his leadership. I love seeing him in the huddles. I do like that both. I'd really like seeing Milenkovic and Morgan. When you see him, those moments, you know, where they get in the huddle and it's a big game, and you really want them to be sort of, you know, kind of bring the team and encourage them and get them over and really get them up and up for a game. So yeah, look, I think Morgan is playing really well. I think he'd be crazy. He would be crazy not to want to play in the game against Man U on Sunday, because that game he plays well. Arguably a bit of pressure off. You know, we're safe. I don't think Man U can do much either. They're guaranteed Champions League, so it's a bit of a sort of nothing game-ish for both teams. So Morgan should absolutely, he wants to take that game by the scruff of the neck, show that he is the guy, and he should be on the plane in the squad and playing well for England as well as he does for Nottingham Forest.
Well, and looking at that, if you look at Morgan Rogers, for example, who has been kind of the favored guy in that role, he can play out wide, but those numbers you just put up, Greg, those mostly came in the first 19 games of the season. Since the last 19 games, Morgan Rogers has had 2 goals and 2 assists. So, to Scott's point, you want someone who is, I think, at optimum levels of confidence and form, because he's going to carry that over, and we just know the type of core that he has. I mean, he's going to give everything for that shirt, right? Not that Morgan Rogers wouldn't, but I do think it makes sense to try to, you know, insert the guy with the most confidence and the most who's shown the most capability, at least recently in recent form.
Okay, so he's going to want to give Tuchel something to think about. Just on Gibbs-White, Andrew Hayward's with us. Good to have you back with us, Andrew. Saying having the ability to score goals from the left has given him an edge into making the squad, and he's not limited, of course, to the number 10 position. That, I think, is crucial because they want players that can operate in different areas of the pitch. Thank you to Mark for the £2 in the pot donation. Ideal midfield 3 for England: Morgan Gibbs-White, Anderson, and Ryan Yates. Well, I don't think you're going to get any complaints from us at all. So, look, let's talk more about the game. We've covered some of our important players. Let's get some general thoughts then. Scott, I'll come to you first. I mean, we're going into this with injury still to Aina. He's not going to make it. Murillo's not going to make it. This is from Vitor's press conference yesterday. He said that Gibbs-White trained with the mask and he feels good. So that's why I think he will start, personally. Sangare and Dan Ndoye were apparently going to start training today. So they might be late inclusions, maybe bench options. But we saw the introduction of Luca Netz recently. Dylan Bakwar's got some minutes. So I'm not looking at you for team selection just yet. We'll come on to team soon. But with all that into the mix, what are your overall thoughts going into an away day at Man United for their last home game of the season?
What an opportunity. What an amazing opportunity for this Forest team with a bit of pressure taken off. You know, we're safe now. Why don't we? I know we've got the injuries, but why can't we go up there full of confidence on a massive stage. I don't like to say it, but Old Trafford is a big stage, and for us to be able to go there and maybe play, I think we've got so many options in terms of the team selection. Pereira could potentially choose some of the younger boys. Jimmy Sinclair, Zach Abbott could potentially get a run. I know we're not going to team selection just yet, but McAtee as well. I still think there's potentially a bit of a space for him as well. That ball that he laid off to Anderson when we in that goal, that was a sublime piece of skill. So I think we should go to Old Trafford. I think maybe there's a little bit of the pressure off. I think maybe I don't think we'll go too laid back about it. I still think we'll go in, and I still think we'll want to win the game. Maybe a few 50-50s. We might not go in quite so hard, but this is a big opportunity, right? Massive opportunity. I think it's similar for Man U as well, because they're safe now in Champions League spaces. We're safe from relegation, so potentially it could be a very open game. Could we see a few goals in this game because both teams are looking to put on a bit of a show. I think it's United's last game at home. I think Casemiro as well. This is the last game for the club, so they will probably want to put on a bit of a show as well. We're going there with potentially, a depleted squad with injuries, but still some great young players and some players that really want to prove themselves. Morgan, in audition for his England spot. So we should go there full of confidence, puff our chests up, and really give it a good go, and really go at Man U in an amazing stadium.
I'm a firm believer that every game of football, players are going to want to go onto the pitch and win. And people talk about, oh, well, they've got nothing to play for. Well, you've got a game of football to play for. You've got 3 points to play for. And you've got a chance to go to Man United and get a win to play for. And that to me is something that all these players that pull on the shirt for Forest are going to want to achieve, because you can't expect to rock up at an in-form Man United and go in half gas. I think you've got to go in full beans, to quote Raf. So I'm expecting them to do just that. And with survival secured, the same sort of personnel as what we put out against Newcastle will probably be the ones that make the trip up, albeit, Richard, we might see a Sangare and a Gibbs-White and a Dan Ndoye back into the mix. So what are you thinking about this game? Vitor's already said, look, there's 6 points to play for from these last 3 games. And I kind of feel that that's his mantra. It's like, I'm not going to go into this game looking just to turn up. I want to win the points, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have the looseness that you can play with the freedom, because as Scotty pointed out, you don't have to worry about relegation now. So you have that aspect of it, which is a good thing. That's a good thing to have that. You've been playing so well just in general. I mean, sans the Villa match, again, Europa to conclude that campaign, we've been absolutely amazing. And so, but I would say there's a couple of things that are intriguing. One, from a personal standpoint for Fernandez, he could be setting the assist record in this game. So he's got that on his mind, right? Coupled with the fact that Morgan, as you said, wants to give a good showing, give a accounting of himself for the potential England spot. But then there's also, I don't want to underestimate, because I think Carrick is safe in that role at this point for Manchester United as their manager. I mean, he's gotten them to Champions League. He's certainly done a lot more with the squad than anybody, at least in the last couple of managers, have. But I would also say, don't underestimate how much our boys want to play for Vitor, because there is definitely a chemistry that's been developed. There is definitely a connection that's been developed. They seem to love him and want to play for him. That's clear. That's why we've seen a lot of these results, because all of these players have been buoyed by what he's done and how he set them up. We know the tactics are there. We know the in-game management is there, but it's just the way he's done the man management component, as we've said time and time again. I wouldn't underestimate how much they want him to stay that manager. And if that's the case, they're going to play with a different level of urgency and desire, because I think they want to see him continue. That'll really be a litmus test, I think, for Marinakis to know, like, this is really, conclude this whole season in totality by really finishing strong. Because if you do that, and you're able to move up, as Scott pointed out, a couple of places in the table by, and get a little bit of extra revenue, but just to have that outcome show, this is the guy to go in with next season, because that stuff is out there, right, about Marco Silva, who sounds like he's potentially maybe going to go to Benfica instead of potentially staying in the Premier League. But if that's the case, you just want to you want no questions asked at the end of the season. Let him be the guy. Let him have a full offseason, a full preseason with the boys, and really see what he can do, as well as maybe helping provide some insights on who he wants to come in, because we know what happened last season when that wasn't allowed. Edu won't be a part of the equation, it sounds like, from this standpoint. But I just don't want to dismiss how much I think they'll play for Vitor to try to keep him in this job, to really cement that.
You're on mute, Greg.
Yeah, I ran to the kitchen to get my phone and forgot to unmute myself. Some stuff going out on Twitter in the last hour or so. Nottingham Forest have entered the race for Wolves wonder kid Mateus Mane, with Vitor Pereira eyeing a shock reunion with the 18-year-old attacker. I know that there's been some conversation about the signings that he made when he started the season at Wolves, and that they didn't turn out to be very good. I can't comment on that because I haven't done enough research, if I'm honest with you. Obviously, the stats are there for themselves, that they didn't win enough games and he was shown the door. So the recruitment in the off-season with his involvement will be, I'm sure, led by that recruitment team that have been quite successful, I guess you could say, of late, with players that have come in. And I think Forest will have learned lessons for sure. One other thing as well breaking this morning is that it looks like Michael Carrick is being offered 2 years by Man United. So a 2-year deal seems about right to tie him down. I'm pretty certain that he'll take that and he'll stay. So that's interesting to note ahead of us going into the game at Manchester United. I mean, they've had a bit of a renaissance, obviously, under his leadership, Scott. And it just goes to show, doesn't it, that the right man coming in can just almost be the sole difference as to why the same set of players can go from being pretty crap to pretty bloody good. And you might argue the same was almost true of Vitor, because I'm not suggesting, I know Dyche did get a tune out of him for a while, but that seemed to be dying off. And when the change was made and Vitor come in, and I mentioned it and others mentioned this is a huge risk. So similarities there, isn't it? That the clubs have made big calls and managers have come in. What do you think that says about the modern player, though? I mean, look at what happened at Chelsea with Rosinia. The players clearly weren't having him, and they still haven't pulled their socks up so much. What does that say about the modern player to you? I've kind of gone off a little bit of a tangent here, but kind of now we're looking at clubs and managers and players. It's not like it used to be back in the day under Cloughy, is it?
Nah, absolutely. Cloughy wouldn't have stood it, would he? He was anyone questioning his authority or questioning any kind of training drills, or if he'd said something and people would have given him a hard time about it, he would have got rid of them pretty quick. I think. I mean, there's a train of thought there. We need to think about that for Forest as well, because the amount of managers that that we've been through, four managers this season. Obviously, Ange not successful. Dyche, there was a lot of there was a lot of talk around how he maybe wasn't like that sort of close to the players and was a little bit more sort of direct with them. He used to run them more, wasn't? I think that was what Morgan said in an interview. He just used to run them more. That was a difference between him and Ange. But I think it's interesting. There's been comparisons made around Pereira and Nuno. Obviously, they're both Portuguese guys. They're both certainly they're very sort of extrovert or positive. It's certainly in interviews, post-game interviews and interviews with the press. And I think also they've kind of got more of a style where they're prepared to kind of put their arm around some of the players and actually have a conversation with them and sort of talk it through with them a bit more, a little bit less old school. Whereas I think Dyche and certainly Cloughy was very much old school manager. It's my way, or you may as well leave. So I think the modern player certainly has a more comfortable journey through football these days. The facilities they've got, all their food cook, the menus like chefs, etc., physios. They certainly seem to have a good lifestyle. But that is the nature of football these days, isn't it? They want players to be turning up well fed, well hydrated, nice, and as ready as they can for the game in terms of the staff which are around them and kind of help them be ready, because it's big business. So that's why the modern player has evolved and changed from the days when Brian Clough was telling everyone what to do at the City Ground.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, we're going to take a break and we'll get more chat about the match afterwards. I'm very conscious, Talking Reds viewers and listeners, that lately we've been asking you to put your hand in your pocket for various charities, and it can become a bit of a habit. But I'm going to play you a video from the Hiking Ginger in just a moment. He is finishing his walk in aid of the Alzheimer's Society. In fact, he may well have crossed the finishing line as we're talking, because he's done all those miles raising money. Over £25,000 has been raised. That's going to be coming up very, very shortly. So I'm asking you to dip your hand in your pocket for him. But I'm also asking you to dip your hand in your pocket for someone called Luke Hardy. Now, this popped up on my Facebook feed. An old friend from primary school shared this. And I saw the Forest shirt and I read the story of Luke. Basically, Luke is not in a great condition. I'm sorry to say. Recently diagnosed with what I think is a brain tumor, effectively. So a glioma brain tumor, very aggressive, very life-limiting. There has been surgery. There's been some success on that, but the decline is evident. And so the plan, the ambition, is to be able to get Luke to the Bournemouth game, the last game of the season. Now, all the tickets have been sold out, because they always get sold out. So the family really are hoping and praying that they can raise enough money to get Luke, and obviously probably one or two other family members in a care capacity, into hospitality. Now, we know hospitality can be quite pricey. So look, if you can donate, the details are in the bio. I'll put them into the chat as well. If you can help get Luke to the City Ground for the Bournemouth game, it would be possibly, I will say it, his last chance to go to a Forest match. And he's a huge Forest fan, and being a Forest fan is one comfort that he's keeping hold of. And to have him at the City Ground for one final experience, I'm sure all Forest fans would agree is a worthy cause. So listen, a couple of quid, cost of a programme, a sausage roll, or whatever it is you can donate. If you can help get Luke and a couple of family members into hospitality for the last game of the season, then we would be really grateful. Okay, thank you so much. And here's that video from Paul Lindsay.
Hi, Talking Reds. The Hiking Ginger here, Paul Lindsay. I'm on day 28 of the Southwest Coastal Path, and I'm about 10 miles away from the finish line. So absolutely delighted to do it in this time. I've been planning this walk for the past year and always set out to do it between 27 to 30 days. So I'm pleased to do it in 28 days. So thank you for your kind donations on my Just Giving page. And please go there and drop a few more quid on if you'd be so kind. I'd be really grateful. Hope you have a great pod today. And absolutely brilliant that Forest are safe. And, we can plan now for the summer with Pereira and obviously the owner to obviously build on things again after what has been quite a difficult year all round. So thanks again, Talking Reds, and I'll see you at the finish line. Take care.
Excellent. What a legend he is. So look, again, very conscious that, times are tough. Give what you can, if you can, to the Hiking Ginger in aid of Alzheimer's. Once again, we're trying to get Luke to the City Ground for that Bournemouth match. Details are in the bio to this episode on YouTube and on podcasts, and I'm going to post it into the chat in a moment as well. All right, thank you so much for that. Okay, Richard Spray, we want to try and think about teams. Here's one I'm going to put on screen. This looks like probably one of our strongest options. Sells in goal, Nets left back, Williams right back. We've got Jer Cunha and Milenkovic. So it's a 4-2-3-1. Anderson Dominguez. Gibbs-White back in the side in that left-hand position that he's been occupying. Igor Jesus in a de facto 10, whether that's a second striker or a deeper 10. Hutchinson on the right, and Chris Wood up top. Now, this could be a Wanye starting, it could be backward starting. Is this the kind of shape and personnel that you'd want to see? Do we go strong regardless? What are you thinking?
Yeah, we go strong. I mean, like I said, he said it himself. He wants those. He wants those wins. As I said earlier, I think it'll strengthen the argument of keeping him here if he can win out or just get good results in general. Because the performance levels have definitely gone up since Vitor's come in. But yeah, I think this makes sense to me. I mean, with these lineups too, as we've seen at different times in different matches previously, he's gonna shift things around. It's going to be somewhat fluid in and out of possession. There might be a different shape that actually manifests itself. So, having this 4-2-3-1, while it doesn't seem like that's been his sort of token formation from the get-go, from the kickoff, it's generally moved into at certain points where you might see Jesus play a little bit more advanced and closer to Wood, and then it becomes more of a 4-4-2 in that scenario. But I like the idea of giving more Cunha. I mean, I know we talked about Sinclair and some of the academy players potentially getting some minutes. I would imagine that probably comes later in the match. But I would say that getting Cunha time on the pitch as well and continuing to develop a relationship with Milenkovic, because it's very possible he could be the one that's next to him starting next season. And then you've got Nets as well, and we've seen what we've seen from him and been very excited about his progression. So having him on that left-hand side, knowing what he can do both in terms of defending, but also in terms of playing more higher up the pitch and being able to contribute and play the ball across in the box and so forth for players like Morgan to get onto, or Jesus or someone else. And I think Hutchinson's been one of the best. If it weren't for Jesus, I would say he's probably been one of the best signings of the season. The goals haven't come yet, but I think his impact in terms of how he functions on the ball, his ability to play narrow, his ability to play out wide. We've seen him take some really nice shots at different points so that it feels like kind of Callum-esque, but from the opposite side with the opposite foot. He could potentially provide some type of skill set like that down the line as he continues to grow, as his mind kind of catches up with the physical skill. So I like this personnel just in general. And I love Dominguez and Anderson because one thing we know about Manchester United, they're one of the best teams in open play goal scoring. And so you got to have the ability to have some players in the middle who can control some of that. I mean, the key is just taking Bruno out of the game as much as humanly possible, which is not an easy prospect to do because he'll move around a lot, kind of function. He's technically the 10, but he functions more like Anderson. So I definitely like this. I think it's a good way to set up. Will it be more of a 4-4-2 potentially? Possibly. Will he potentially look at a back three because we know they're a high possession team and he wants to kind of defend a little bit more? That's an option. But yeah, I definitely like the personnel that we've got grouped into this one.
And there's players there, Scott, that also have World Cup hopes. So Igor Jesus is on the long list still for Brazil. I don't know that he'll make it. Dominguez is on the long list for Argentina, so he might have hopes to go. Woods has been named in the squad for New Zealand. Gibbs-White we've spoken about. Milenkovic, I don't think is going. Serbia didn't qualify. Sells looks like he's going with Belgium. So they're all going to want to impress. I mean, what are your thoughts on this team shape? Is there anybody that's crying out that should be included, in your opinion?
I think, yeah. I mean, this has been our sort of strongest formation of recent times. Having the two up front, Wood and Jesus up front, or sort of a 1 year and Jesus up front with Gibbs-White just slightly on the left. That seems to be the formation that we've kind of landed on, which has sort of allowed us to play better football, score more goals. So certainly, I think the formation-wise, this is very much what I think Pereira will go with. I think the questions you could ask would potentially, we mentioned what's the fella's name, the young lad, Zach Abbott. Would you play Zach Abbott because Cunha's fitness? Maybe it's not perfect. So would you then, in a game like this, would you then think around playing Zach Abbott? I think as well, McAtee, again, another player. I think certainly if he doesn't start, I think we should definitely be bringing him on with sort of 60 minutes gone. I think we saw in that Newcastle game, he has got some quality touches. He's a quality player. You've just got to play him in the right position. So I think there's maybe an opportunity there for him. I like Nets on there as well. I think we've seen he's been playing well. He's really sort of, I wouldn't say come of age, but he's certainly improved since he first started at Forest. I think it's vital that we do have good backup, with Aina having some injury concerns as well. So having Nets, a solid solid, really good replacement. I think that's really important. And obviously Williams gives us that flexibility. He can change sides as well, so that's good. The only one I'm seeing here, obviously you got Dominguez in the middle there next to Anderson. I'm wondering, do we pick Yates to just sort of stick on Fernandez and just annoy him for a little bit of time, and then and just to try and ruffle his feathers a little. But yeah, I think you've pretty much nailed it with what you got there.
Well, that's one option. I mean, it's going to be a week since the Newcastle game. I mean, on Cunha, he played the whole 90 minutes against Newcastle. I think his fitness is secured. Here's a 4-4-2 option that kind of has the same personnel, albeit in that 4-4-2 with Anderson, Dominguez, Hutchinson, Gibbs-White. It's kind of it's the same but different. So you can see them going between the 4-2-3-1 and it becoming the 4-4-2. You could include a back row, as I've said. You could include a Zach Abbott, although I think he's down the pecking order, because I think that if you do want to have a third centre back, you're going to pick Morato, who's earned his place really in the last few games. Yeah. He's done pretty well. So there's the back three option with Morato, Milenkovic, and Cunha, Nets and Williams as wing backs, with a midfield trio of Anderson, Gibbs-White, and Dominguez, with Gibbs-White obviously, moving forwards to support a Chris Wood and an Igor Jesus. Again, Taiwo was great against Newcastle, Richard. I thought he was really good. He started with the back three. That wasn't working. He went to the back four with Nets going to a left wing option. So I wonder if he's learned from that with the personnel we put out against Newcastle and thinks, you know what, that wasn't quite working for us. So is he less likely to start with a back three away at Old Trafford, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I look, you're right. Morato has definitely stepped up his game. I think we talked about this with Rads a couple weeks ago, just the way that the narrative had been formed with him in terms of his capacity to switch off at different points and potentially become a weakness in that side of the pitch. And if he gets pushed out wide to play more of a left back role, we know that's not what he wants to do, and that's not what we want him to do, because that's a, like I always say, like it's a fracture point for potentially an attack where they can take advantage of that. Again, it's that propensity to potentially still be there that always worries me a little bit. It does create a slight weakness in our defensive line in a way that we function in that role in that way. But I tend to believe he'll shift to the 4. I think he's preferred that. He's seen the evidence of it, that the personnel suits it and it functions better in those roles when it's in that formation. So I don't think he's going to go this route, and I don't think he wants Morgan as central as well. And we all understand, even if he plays out on the left, he's going to float, right? He's going to play narrow. He's going to link up with Nets coming up on that left-hand side, as well as if Williams comes over there at some point, they switch something up and put Abbott over to the right or whatever they do. I mean, he's got options. And one thing we know about Vitor, he'll come in with a plan. He'll have it kind of staged for what he thinks can happen depending on the flow of the game and how things unfold. He'll have something to hopefully counteract that. As you said, I think Raf brought it up in the last match, Sells going down purposely to try to switch things up, knowing that back three wasn't working. And that's the kind of science that I think we're dealing with in terms of what Vitor's seeing on the pitch and how he can react to it quickly. There's not this slowness, because the one thing we always seem to knock Nuno for was a slowness to adjust, right? And then of course with Dyche, it was no adjustment at all. So but I think that Vitor's, to me, has solved that riddle a bit more. And I do like Gibbs-White, I think, in that more wider role. But like we said, it's all fluid, right? I mean, in and out, like I said, out of possession, they're going to do something different. In possession and do something different. I mean, I'm sure, he'll be barking out those orders in a positive way to get them set up, even in game, to try to make those transitions happen. But yeah, I love what he's got. I think we've got a nailed on personnel at this point, and then we've got a couple of different players that we can insert when those other starters are not available, like Murillo, like Ola Aina.
One thing that I've really enjoyed, and I think I've said this before, and I know you guys probably have as well, that since Vitor's come in and he has really embraced the whole squad rather than just a core group of 13, 14 players, and he's trusted those players, and they have performed, certainly when it was in Europe. One thing that I've really enjoyed is seeing players like McAtee come in and be given a chance. And so when it goes to the last couple of games of the season, as much as you want to play your strongest 11, Scott, we are now in that territory where we're going in against teams where, so for example, Man United have already qualified for the Champions League. So it kind of makes no bones really to anybody else around them that if we decided to play a McAtee, a Bakwa, a Zach Abbott, a Jimmy Sinclair, it's not going to affect. And obviously we can do what we want, but you've obviously got to have also responsibility for the rest of the league and make sure that you are upholding the standards. And also even the last game against Bournemouth, I mean, they're going to be trying to get into the Champions League. So they'll certainly have something on it. So what do you think when it comes to the likes of McAtee, as Andrew was pointing out with his comment, coming in ahead of Jesus? He's flattered to deceive at times. He's certainly shown he's got quality. Is it time to maybe say, you know what, last couple of games of the season are yours. Go out there and show us what you can do properly.
It's Man U. We want to beat them. We want to beat them at their gaff. So I think maybe you start with Jesus. I think he's established in that position. I think whether they play Awoniyi or they play Chris Wood up front with Jesus. I'm not sort of wedded to either player. I definitely would like to see McAtee. I'm not necessarily sure I'd start him. I think we've already spoken around how this is an important game for Gibbs-White. It's an important game for Anderson. Almost a bit of a performance from them. He really pushes them with Tuchel. So I think McAtee definitely should get minutes. I'm just not necessarily sure that he should start. Although saying that, Jesus has looked tired. It's interesting that now I think about it a bit more. Jesus has looked tired. So is this now a game to play McAtee? I feel like he's one of those guys that will turn it on in sort of big games. What was the expression? You can win a game when you're playing, I don't know, Man U at Old Trafford, but can you beat, I don't know, a very small team on a wet Tuesday night in a very small town type thing? He's the sort of player I think that will revel on the big occasion at the big ground. So actually, maybe this could well be the game for McAtee, and then you start McAtee, and then you bring Jesus on a bit later.
Yeah, and I think he's
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, mate.
Breaking news: Matt Sells left out of the Belgium squad, not going to the World Cup.
It's been brilliant.
From Strasbourg and Lamens from Man United. So
that's kind of understandable. Right. He's been good, yeah, that's unfortunate. But I was going to say, with regards to McAtee, if you look at the actual arc of his career, it's very similar to Morgan's. He's a little bit older, I think, in terms of when Morgan obviously came into our squad and started to really become the talisman as we've known him to be. But from a minutes logged, just a general trajectory of everything that's happened in terms of what he's done, similarly, they both went to Sheffield United as a loan. I don't think we can completely write him off, and I do believe, as you said, Greg, I think he's one of those players that I think Vitor is probably earmarked for having more of a role next season. Yeah, it may be more in cup matches, but he's also shown he has the capacity to adapt and play in the Premier League. He's never really been given a significant stretch of time to really insert himself. I mean, because the difference is between becoming a player who we know has skill and has some things that I even think from an incisive passing standpoint, certainly within the box and smaller spaces, he's actually shown to be a little bit better just from an accuracy standpoint than Morgan has been historically, right? Morgan's switch of play balls have been elite, right? 30 plus yards across the pitch, those ones on the outside of the boot that he does so brilliantly. So I'm very hesitant to write him off. I know you're not writing him off, Greg. Scotty's not writing him off. Andrew in the comments is not writing him off. But I do think he has a significant part to play, and I would not be upset. I think the one thing with him is getting stronger in the lower body, being able to manage contact balance, because he cannot seemingly do that, and do a little bit of the dirty work here and there if he has to drop a little bit deeper and play defensively. That's another part of his game that hasn't quite got there yet. And Morgan's has improved over time in that sense as well. So, yeah, I wouldn't be upset seeing him getting thrown in there, because I definitely think he has a part to play for our club.
I'm going to come to Richard in just a moment to do the opposition preview. But before we get to that, I want to highlight this comment from Mab17D. Says, this has to be the best Forest channel out there. Keep up the good work, guys. Thank you so much for that. That actually is amazing to read.
I think that might be Matt from Forest All Over.
I was going to say, I'm wondering if that's someone we know.
Yeah, I think that's Matt from Forest All Over, who's absolutely fantastic himself and has one of the best podcasts out there. Yeah.
Thanks, Rich.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Smart guy. I like him.
Smart guy. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. just briefly on Matt Sells. I mean, I was just reading Twitter. There were a couple of different squads got put out with Sells in it, but officially he has been left out. I mentioned, Scott, just briefly on this. We've got time's running out. I mentioned before January that I kind of thought this might be Matt Sells' last season with us. I had a feeling he was being edged out certainly by Sean Dyche. And then when Vital's come in, we obviously had Ortega at our disposal. And rather than play Sells in Europe, he played Ortega. We all like Ortega. We saw Matt Sells in the Premier League pull off some really good saves still. I'm kind of curious to get your kind of quick thoughts on Matt Sells. Does he stay? Or do you think there's a chance he goes? He's not made the Belgium squad. How's he going to be taking that, I wonder? Will that affect him on the weekend? I mean, is there a case that Ortega comes in now? I guess the goalkeeping situation maybe suddenly has been thrown back up in the air. What do you think? Just briefly on that.
Just briefly, I'll certainly try. I think
I'm just at time. That's all.
I think Belgium must have some pretty damn good keepers if Matt Sells isn't getting into their top three. He's proved since he's come back for us. He's proved this season that he is a top keeper, top shot stopper. I think we're always going to have that sort of battle between Ortega and Sells. Obviously having European footy this season, and Ortega's been playing in those games, whereas Sells has been playing in the Premier League games. Next season, well, unfortunately we don't have European footy, so how will that work itself out? I do like Sells. I think he's a great keeper. I think he's confidence in the box. I think he's a big guy. I think it will be. I think it will be a real issue. I think maybe it may affect his confidence. But look, I think as a keeper, I think you've got to be pretty strong of mind, and I'm not sure you can let things like that try and get to you. But hopefully he won't be affected by that, and will put in a top performance against Man United on Sunday.
So Man United on Sunday, it's a 12:30 kickoff. So please be aware of that. Scott, that's good for you because it's a 9:30 in the evening kickoff for you. I think quickly you mentioned a couple of the groups in Australia getting together.
Yes, yeah. Cheers, yeah, thank you. So that is a good time. So midday midday kickoff in the UK. So that's really good times for Australian Forest fans. So it's a 7:30 p.m. kickoff in Western Australia. So the Perth Reds are meeting up, and also it's 9:30 p.m. kickoff on the East Coast. So the Sydney Reds are also meeting up for the game. If you're from those areas, please do get down there. All the details are on the site. But look, it's just great to see Forest fans getting together. It's always good to meet people, from the area where you're from, and have a chat with people that the area where you're from in Nottingham. But for me, it'll be a 9:30 kickoff. Looking forward to a few early evening drinks, and then we'll settle into the game and hope for a terrific performance and 3 points from Forest.
Okay. Richard Spray is about to tell us a little bit more about our opponents, Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean, I think many of us are probably familiar with this club. We kind of understand what they're maybe a little bit. So just from a form standpoint, they've done obviously really well, and I think that if you think about it, it's kind of a blueprint for what we're at right now. I mean, in terms of they were in Europe last season, they were struggling to balance some of that. They were finishing lower in the table than expected, and but they completely turned it around with the right manager and the right insertion of new personnel. We all know about kind of some of what they've done in the offseason. They operate in a 4-2-3-1. That's what Carrick's going to favor. They have had some players out, players like Seshko, who's been honestly really good. He's made a transition to the Premier League, and I think he's 11 goals in the Premier League. So he's done what he needed to do. He's a really young player, really growing into his own. So it's one to be concerned about in the future. But it's a player that, Greg, you and I liked coming off of, I think, the Euros. He looked really good in the Euros, and so he's been a revelation for them. So he'll be back for this match. It looks like it's showing 50% likelihood, but he'll probably be back. But yeah, they've drawn 2, they've won 3 and lost 1 in recent matches. but they're coming off of kind of a suspect performance against Sunderland. But again, that was also with the idea that Seshko wasn't playing and Buemo was coming off the bench. They weren't fielding all their normal starters. And so that it's kind of understandable that maybe they weren't operating at the same level that they normally are used to. But you're going to have to struggle against players like Cunha, who's really good and can kind of play all areas of the pitch in that attacking position. You've got Bruno Fernandes, obviously, who's brilliant, who's been absolute maestro this season more than ever and has been typically in the past. Amad Diallo is actually been playing more in a traditional winger role, versus what he has done in the past, which is played more of a wingback role under Amorim. So they've really kind of, I think Carrick's really started to put these guys in the positions where they're going to be the most successful, similar to what Vitor's been doing with our squad. But Lamens is going to be in goal. You're going to have Shaw on the left. You're going to have Maguire in the center, one of the center back positions. Looks like De Ligt might be back for this game as well. Mazraoui or Dallo, you might see either one of those on the right hand side. But for the most part, we know what we're going to get, and that's going to be very high possession, very controlled, and very good chemistry and good synergy in the middle of the pitch. In terms of strengths and weaknesses, creating chances, we shouldn't be surprised. Finishing chances, they've been very good. Attacking wide play, they're also really good at set pieces. They have the second highest number of goals in the entire Premier League from set pieces. So we need to be very conscious of that. Having a player like Cunha in there, clearly that will help. Milenkovic and so on and so forth. So we can switch over to the next slide, Greg. Just again, 63 goals for, XG shows about 65.5. So they're pretty close to anticipated goals to actual conversion. All of it's coming, 54% of it's coming from open play, which shouldn't shock us with the kind of midfield that they're fielding. Again, set pieces are a problem. Counterattacks, not great. I think they're right in the middle of the Premier League, like us, in terms of counterattack goals. I think they're 9th in the Premier League. We're 8th in terms of counterattack goals. So we're a little bit better there, but they can give up goals as well. From an XG to actual conversion, their XGA shows 46.8, but they've given up 48. So it's slightly higher in terms of opposing teams being able to convert on them. They've given up a number of own goals too, and penalties. So they can be weak in giving up fouls in areas that they don't want to give those up in, obviously. So that's definitely something we could take advantage of. Like I said, Seshko is their highest goal scorer. Casemiro has had a real turnaround season, Scotty referenced, being the last season of his career, likely at Manchester United. He'll probably move on, but he's had 9 goals. He's even got 2 assists. You've got Cunha with 9 goals and Buemo with 9 goals, Fernandes with 8, but then you've got the Fernandes distribution of 19 assists. So he's really looking for that 20th assist to try to put him over the top to be the guy who has had the most assists in the Premier League in a given season. But, we can't sleep on any one of those attacking players who are all brilliant and all effective. Attacking in terms of possession or attacking percentage on either side of the pitch, it's pretty much even, and they're really going to operate really closely and really well and really synergistically within that 18-yard box too. So again, we've got to be very controlled, not allow ourselves to get opened up and be carved up in that area of the pitch as well. So that's Man United.
Hopefully we'll be hearing that again on Sunday. We were at the Man United game, weren't we, Richard, when we were together at the City Ground, and we saw Casemiro score a header. I think all those goals you've just referenced, all 9 of them, I think are all headers. He's had an unbelievable season in that respect. So we've got to keep an eye on him. And look, Man United are, here comes my favourite phrase, the pantomime villains of the Premier League. Everybody likes to hate on Man United, and I'm certainly one of them. So I'll definitely be looking for us to get at least a point away, and I think we can do that. And I want us to build on what's been a successful last period in the Premier League. We're unbeaten in 8 games in the Premier League. We've gone away to Man City and got the point. We've won at Liverpool. We've beaten Chelsea. We've destroyed Spurs. Okay, I know that Spurs are not the Sky 6 team anymore. But look, we've got great players, whoever comes in, whether it's young players like Jimmy Sinclair, who Stephen says he'd love him to be up front. Not quite sure we're going to see that, but you never know. So let's round off the pod with a score prediction. Scott, over to you. What are you thinking, buddy?
I think as long as we stay compact, we're hard to break down. I think we can get something at Old Trafford. The pressure's off. There could be a few goals in it. I'm going to go 2-2.
Good old Desmond for Scott. Thank you very much for being with us, Scott. Anything quickly you want to close on before we go?
No, just I think look, there's still 6 points. There's still 6 points to get as well. I don't think Pereira wants us to take the foot off the pedal. I think he wants us to keep going. I think the more we mentioned £3 million for every place that you go up in the Premier League. So I think Marinakis will be talking to him about it as well. Pereira's got stuff to prove to Marinakis, to the Forest fans. You've got Morgan, who wants to put on a good show. You've got Anderson, who wants to put on a good show as well, cement his place as well. So I think this is still very much game on. Let's go to Old Trafford, give it a really good go, and let's come away with something from this game.
Brilliant. Thanks, Scotty. Over to you, Richard. Closing thoughts in your score prediction, please, mate.
Yeah, one thing we can't forget as well, just because I have a connection to this place as well. We can't forget that he's not just from Australia. The man who's on the pod right now is from Radcliffe originally. So we can't sully the good name of Radcliffe and not put that out there. Just the great little place that is, great village that it is, near Nottingham, but as well as the Hiking Ginger, also from Radcliffe. So appreciate that place. It has a special place in my heart because my granddad lived there for many years. But anyway, I would say 2-1, and I'm going to say we'll extend an olive branch to Fernandez and give him that 20th assist. Go ahead and get that 20th assist, Bruno. Get someone scores. Maybe it's a Seshko or Cunha. They get that goal, but I say we win 2-1, and I want to see another goal from Morgan because we know Manchester United was his boyhood club that he supported, right? And I'm going to say another one from Anderson as well, just to add more value to him. In terms of you talked about ratcheting up the revenue. Let's ratchet up Anderson's value even more. Give him another couple of extra £1 million by getting another goal, which will actually take him above Declan Rice. I mean, unless he scores obviously in the last couple of matches of the season for Arsenal, but that's what I think will happen, and I think we'll end up getting those 3 points. It'd be brilliant to do that because I think we've beaten them 2-1 a couple of times in the last couple of years at their ground as well. So it'd be great to do that again.
Okay, Andrew says he thinks 3-1. Milenkovic, Woody and Hutch to score. Doran Torres with us. How you doing, Ben? He says 3-0 to Forest. Not quite sure 3-0, but I will say 3-2. That was the score last season. And I'm going to go for a Milenkovic goal because he scored there last year. He hasn't been as prolific, if that's the right word, as a centre-back. But I think we're due a Milenkovic goal. I agree. I think Morgan's going to go there. I think he's going to start. The man in the mask is going to turn up. I think he wants to play. I think he will play. I think he's desperate to play. He wants to go to the World Cup. He deserves to go to the World Cup. So, Thomas Tuchel, if you are going to judge players correctly, then Morgan needs to be on that plane because whilst he's got really strong competition with Foden and Palmer and the like, they're all outstanding players, but their form has not been anywhere close to what Morgan has produced. And so get him on that plane. Let's get him in the team on Sunday. It's going to be 3-2 to Forest. Come on, you Reds.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.